Precedent for this meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 1st of April 2025. The following members are present: Councillors Ali Callison, Ralph Barker, Arch Buchanan. We have apologies from Councillor Ross Clark, and Councillor Gladys Ferguson Miller is attending as his substitute. The following members are present: Councillors Jerry Convery, Margaret Cowie, Maureen Devlin, Colin Dewar, Mary Donnelly. We have apologies from Councillor Joe Fagan. The following members are present: Councillors Alistair Fulton, Shalene Handybode, Graham Horn, Cal Johnston Dempsey, Ross Lambie. Councillor Martin Lennon is not present. The following members are present: Councillors Leslie MacDonald, David McLachlan, Richard Nelson, Norman Ray, John Ross, Graham Scott, David Shearer. Councillor Helen Toner is not present just now, but understands she's going to try and attend later on. And Councillor David Watson is also present. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Just before commencing today's business, would I ask members to note that items 3 and 5 on the agenda will be presented together before being determined separately. And we'll move into the agenda items. Agenda item number 1. Is there any declarations of interest? Councillor Allison, please.
An interest, but for purposes of transparency, etc., regarding item 7, to state that whereas I am partner in a business which marches, if you like, part of this application, we have nothing to do with the actual area that is under decision here today, and I certainly have no communication or connection with anyone who's claiming ownership of the entrance of the road. So therefore I feel there is no conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Allison. That's for you to take that test within yourself, and you've done that, so we will take note of that. Any further declarations of interest? Just before we go into the agenda items, I've just been informed that items 3 and 5 are not going to be presented together. They are going to be separate. So agenda item number 2 then is the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 4th of March 2025. These are submitted for approval as a correct record. I will move these as a correct record.
I'll second it, Chair.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 3 then is the South Lanarkshire Development Plan Scheme and Participation Statement 2025-2026, pages 11 to 32. Fraser.
Thanks, Chair. This report addresses a statutory duty on planning authorities to produce an annual update on the progress, timetable and the participation activity in relation to the preparation of the local development plan. So members will be aware that work is underway for the next local development plan for South Lanarkshire, and at this stage of the process we're engaging in a wide range of stakeholders, gathering relevant data that will then be collated as an evidence report and submitted to a meeting of the full council for approval prior to being submitted to the Scottish Government. After that, a government-appointed reporter undertakes a gate check of this evidence report, and that is expected to conclude in the first half of next year, and if accepted will then form the basis on which the third local development plan for South Lanarkshire will be drafted and again brought back to the full council for approval. At this stage, officers are involved in a significant review of the information that we hold on matters such as housing, land, play and open space provision, industrial and commercial property, and a whole host of other land use matters. And at the same time, we are engaging with communities and the development industry to identify their ongoing ambitions. Key dates looking forward will be the publication of a proposed plan in the second half of 2027, with the adoption of the plan now expected in 2028. However, throughout this process, there will be numerous opportunities for input and engagement, and these will be brought forward through workshops as well as through formal processes. So therefore, members are asked to approve the development plan scheme and the participation statement for 2025.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments. Councillor Shearer, please.
Thank you, Chair. I take it that It's now open for sites to come forward to be included in the local plan. And what is the appeals procedure if those sites are rejected? Thank you.
Fraser?
No, the process around that, Councillor, we're actually doing it's a soft call for sites we're looking to do, which will inform an evidence report. That will go in as part of the information for the evidence report. The actual call for ideas in terms of the development plan process will be after the evidence report. At that stage, developers, landowners, anyone interested can come forward with their proposals. They will be assessed in the preparation of the proposed plan. If they're not in the proposed plan, there's then a form of examination that's carried out through that as well. So there'll be a number of stages going through the development plan process at which sites will be considered. They'll be subject to an examination, and then whether or not they're included within the adopted plan itself will be something that will be addressed probably around about 27, 28. But there's an awful lot of process to go through before then. There'll be a lot of engagement with different house builders, with landowners as well, and we'll be bringing reports back to various stages. We'll provide a bit more information in terms of what will be the stages for landowners to come forward. Just now, it's more about almost like information gathering. It's not a formal process around that. So the formal processes will be into next year, if that helps. The appeals will take place once the proposed plan is actually in place. So there can be appeals in terms of not being included within the proposed plan. There can be appeals in terms of actually even between the evidence check and the proposed plan itself as well. So the processes are quite open. It's not necessarily an appeal, but there can be, the appeals would be if there was a subsequent planning application. So this would be more about reviews of what's going into the plan itself and whether or not that a landlord would like to see sites included within the proposed plan. So it'll be more through the examination of the evidence report as well as what's actually into the proposed plan from the council as well. So the proposed plan that goes to our council includes a whole period of consultation before it then goes to Scottish Government Minister. So that's kind of what the appeal stage would be. But even after that, there can be judicial reviews, there can be claims. So it's a long and drawn-out process, and there's lots of opportunities for landowners to claim that their sites are identified within the plan.
Councillor Norman Ray, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just a sort of comment or question around sort of public expectations of this process. I was picking up when at my local community council, what I took to be in relation to this, that they were discussing the sort of input that they would be putting into the consultation process. And my sort of impression was that they maybe had different expectations of what this was about rather than the sort of planning related process. They were thinking more of what do we want for the area? We want a health centre, we want this, we want that, and which made me think, is there a danger that people might be disappointed at the end of the process if they're seeing it as something other than it is?
An aspect such as that, the provision of new health, that would be something that would be dependent on whether or not NHS were coming forward with that site. I think there is sometimes confusion between the community planning process and the land use planning process. And the community planning process would be more about kind of where there'd be investment priorities around that. The development planning process is more about the use of the land itself. If a new large-scale housing proposal was coming forward, there may need to be provision for new health facilities as part of that, but it certainly wouldn't be about where the direct investment was going. It's quite tough to kind of cut through that, and for members in the community groups to be to be aware of the different processes. But there are different statutory processes you go through in terms of community planning as well as this the development plan process as well. But we can try and provide as much information online. We can try and provide as much information to community groups so that they are aware of what each process is about. But it can be a difficult sort of process to work your way through.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Fraser, for that. Just a statement as a question. I don't see any restriction on members of this committee contributing to the process. Thanks.
Thank you. Fraser, do you want to say anything?
No, definitely not, Councillor. No, we really do need the input of the members of the Planning Committee. That's why there is the formal role of the Planning Committee, but we're also looking to have workshops through the whole process as well, because we recognise that, again, you're out with community groups, you're engaging with them. So we would, at this stage, there is a lot of data gathering, information gathering, but as the ideas start to formulate, that's when we would want to engage with you as local members. But it's probably just a bit premature just now, but we want to have you involved.
Thank you, Fraser. Councillor Allison, please.
By Councillor Ray's question, but what I'm wondering is what are planning meaning to do to inform members of the public about this process, not just different organisations, or do they have to go through these organisations? Because most individuals will not be hanging on every word that we have in the Planning Committee, and therefore perhaps are not aware. Is there a timetable, and what are you actually doing to inform members of the public rather than organisations?
Fraser?
Yeah, no, Councillor, I suppose that's what, like the participation statement, which is set out in an annex to the report. That sets out the range of groups that we would want to meet with, and there can be individuals around that as well. We look to try and engage with as wide a range of groups as possible, and that's going from children, from sort of groups that don't tend to involve themselves in this process as well. The door is open to any organisation that wants to engage in the process. It is a very wide-ranging consultation exercise that we go through. We use a range of tools. We will use public meetings. We will use, we'll go along to, within reason, we would go along to the sort of the meetings of groups as well to try and seek their views. Our officers are going along to a whole range of groups just now. We've had various workshops. We've had various events. It'll never be enough, is the one thing that we can guarantee, but we will seek to engage with every sector of the community and to ensure that they have their say in terms of what's in the local development plan as well. Again, not the aspirations of every community group might not necessarily be reflected in the plan, but we will look to engage with them and try and explain the process to them as we work through this, which is quite a long and drawn out process, but we'll try and engage with groups as much as we can.
Supplementary, Chair.
Yep, okay.
Again, that was all mentioning groups, etc. I'm wondering about just members of the public. Are we doing anything to promote the fact that this process is taking place rather than simply going through these groups?
Individual processes, if sites are identified actually in a local development plan, there is neighbour notification that's carried out to everyone who has a neighbour a neighbouring site. There's a lot of information that's on the web page. There's a lot of information that's put out through the press. There's a lot of information that's put out through communication. People do tend to engage in this process through groups as opposed to through individuals, but there's absolutely no problem with with individuals engaging in this process. We don't have an opportunity or the resources to go and speak to every single member of the public that gets in touch with us, but whether or not they come in through as a group or as an individual, they can engage in this process, and that's what happens through. That's always been the case with the local development plans, but people do tend to work together in groups and engage. That tends to be where we get the longest or the furthest reach in terms of the issues that are in the plan, but there's no problem with individuals coming to meet with us as well.
Thank you. Councillor Shearer, then we'll bring this matter to a close.
Just on the topic that Councillor Allison had brought up, I'm assuming that the Council's PR team will be doing everything to publicise that where we are in the process and when members of the public can get involved and have their say, whether it's through a group, a community council or as an individual.
Thank you. If there's no further questions or comments then, the committee then is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the current position on the preparation of South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan 3 be noted, and that the South Lanarkshire Development Plan Scheme and Participation Statement 25-26 as attached as Appendix 1 of the report be approved. I will move.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 4 then is application P230770 for a proposed residential development and associated infrastructure at land 50 metres south-west of 40 Toff Coombs Crescent Stonehouse, pages 33 to 42. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. This application and report that relates to a site that is within the settlement boundary of Stonehouse, but through the assessment of the application, the applicant has not been able to provide a detailed timescale for build-out and demonstrate that a safe and suitable means of access can be delivered. This being the case, it brings the application into conflict with Policy 16 of the National Planning Framework, as well as Policies 3, 5, DM1 and DM20 of the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan. The applicant has been asked over a prolonged time to provide details of the access, layout and drainage, as is necessary for an application of this nature, but they have failed to do so. And as a result of this, for the reasons set out in section 11 of the report presented to members, it is recommended that the application P240533 should be refused.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. Councillor Barker.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks again, Fraser. Just on principle, development over these former routes, which may be used again in future. Once lost, they're lost forever. So I'd support the refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, please? If there are no further questions or comments, then the recommendation is to refuse. I will go with the recommendation to refuse.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 5 then is application P240533 for change of use of open space to accommodate expansion of petrol filling station, including 2 electric vehicle charging bays, 2 jet wash bays, laundry unit, boundary fencing and extension to retail unit at Ernock Service Station, 105 Well Hall Road in Hamilton. And these on pages 43 to 50. Is it?
Thanks, Chair. This application seeks consent to extend an existing service station to provide a range of additional facilities, including jet wash bays, a laundry unit and a 29 square metre extension to the retail area. 17 letters of objection have been received, and the issues raised are summarised in section 7 of the report and assessed against the relevant planning policies and material considerations in section 10. It is considered that the facilities which are proposed for this unit are appropriate to the site, the business that is being operated and the context of the surrounding area. No objections have been submitted by the Roads Authority in terms of the impact of the proposal on the amenity of the area has been assessed as well, and there are suitable conditions that are attached to allow control over factors such as noise, hours of operations, as well as the drainage of water from the site. It is also noted that works are planned to be carried out in the near future to improve the adjoining roundabouts, and this in itself will also assist with the flow and movement of traffic using the service station, as well as those travelling through the adjoining junctions. In conclusion, the design, layout and general impact of the development does not raise significant amenity or infrastructure issues, and as the use complies with the relevant national and local development planning policies, it is recommended that the application P240533 should be approved, subject to the conditions set out on page 42 of today's papers.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. Councillor Mary Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move deferring and a site visit. I'm looking at the comments from roads-related matters. The proposal will lead to queues and traffic build-up on Well Hall Road. The site is situated between 2 roundabouts. The congestion caused by the proposal will increase noise and air pollution, and I do take on board the points that are being made by the environmental health. The proposed car parking at the site is inadequate, and this will result in users parking in the surrounding streets, which is not very much room. And this is already an area where it is hazardous for the public to walk. Concerns about water runoff on the nearby roads also. And those points I would like to defer and ask for a site visit. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, just before I look for a seconder for you, I'll ask Fraser just to come in on the roads, because there is work ongoing with the roads in that area, so that might help or alleviate your concerns. So I'll ask Fraser just to come in on that and about the runoff of the water and the drainage, because I believe there is drainage there already as well. So I'll ask Fraser just to come in and clarify some of the points, please, Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's works planned to improve the junctions in that area. They are programmed for the end of April, so they are relatively imminent. That date's still to be finalised, but it's in that sort of time frame. In terms of parking within the site, there is a full area that's been constructed for the EVC charging points, the vacuum and the jet washes. And the extension to the shop is relatively small, so it won't attract significantly more traffic to the site in terms of the shop. So we're quite satisfied that the proposals will work adequately.
Okay, thank you, Fraser. I'll bring in Councillor Barker first, and I'll come back to see if you have a seconder, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. It does. I can't overrule any, kind of non-objections from, from the roads officers, but it does look a very limited site, and we know from a similar operation not very far from here how traffic builds up, the popularity of car washes and how traffic builds up onto the main road. So I would be concerned. I mean, it does look to be very much in what is now a residential area and a very limited site. So I do have concerns. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Donnelly, do you have a seconder for the deferment? Councillor Shearer, you will second for deferring for a site visit and then bringing it back? Okay. Is there any further questions or comments then? Councillor Donnelly.
I know. I take on board the points that you're making, so I would be looking for it to come back once those roads developments have actually happened to see if it's taken away the congestion that will appear because there'll be footfall. So that's one of the reasons why I'm moving for deferment, which I think is fair.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor McLaughlin, and then we'll bring this matter to a conclusion.
Question for Fraser and from the Roads Department. I wonder if you could elaborate a wee bit, Fraser. I know there is work to be taking place soon, but I'm not entirely sure what the detail is. Is it going to change the shape of the existing roundabouts? Is it going to change the area materially different, or is it just to tweaks here and there to smooth it out? Personally speaking, I don't see that there's that much needing done at the roundabouts. They work quite well, in my opinion, but nevertheless, these works are programmed. I wonder if you could just elaborate a little bit on what's going to happen with the roundabouts.
Fraser?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, the roundabouts have been enlarged to increase the capacity of the roundabouts, essentially for the community growth area. The junction needs to be made bigger to cope with the additional traffic. But specific to the development that we're talking about, the two roundabouts will have a central reserve, if you like, in between the two, so traffic won't be able to turn right immediately into the site. They'll have to drive round the roundabout, so that will stop traffic queuing up if someone was waiting to turn into the site, and also for traffic coming out of the petrol filling station, they'll have to turn left and go round the roundabout rather than turning immediately right. So the improvements will have a beneficial.
Thank you. Supplementary, Councillor McLaughlin.
I know we're veering into a different category, but I suppose it's important for Councillor Donnelly's point of view. If we're going to enlarge the roundabout, what land are they going to use? And if we're going to put in a central reservation, does that mean the whole road's going to be widened? And if so, where is the land coming from to do that?
Yeah, in terms of a central reservation, it's Kirban, so there's not a lot of additional land. However, there's no the land in the petrol filling station isn't being used. To be honest, I have to look at the plans just to see exactly where the land was coming from, but I know that it's not encroaching on the petrol filling station. It will be the opposite side of the road from that, which is quite a green area at the moment. No.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or comments, then I will go with the recommendation, which is to grant subject to conditions.
I'll second it, Chair.
Which means we'll then bring the matter to a vote. The recommendation is to grant, and the amendment then is from Councillor Donnelly. You want to just confirm?
Thank you, Chair. So just to recap, the proposal moved by Councillor Nelson and seconded by Councillor Convery is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions specified in the report. The amendment proposed by Councillor Donnelly and seconded by Councillor Shearer is to defer the application to hold a site visit due to concerns regarding traffic queuing, parking and water runoff and drainage, and also noise. The vote is now live. If I can ask members to please indicate your voting preference. Thank you. There appears to still be one member that hasn't cast their vote. If you could please indicate your voting preference. There still appear to be one vote short. If I could. Councillor Buchanan, we think it might be yourself that hasn't indicated.
Councillor Buchanan, can you just check to see that you have voted? If not, we will close the voting. Sure. Last chance.
Okay, all members have now indicated their voting preference. I'm closing the vote. Eleven members have voted in favour of the motion and 12 in favour of the amendment. I therefore declare the amendment carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We will then move on to agenda item number 6. It's application P24000990 for erection of a free-range poultry unit and feed silos with new access, parking and associated works at land 360 metres west-south-west of Station Cottage, Davor Road, Drumclog and Straven. And these on pages 51 to 60. Fraser.
Thanks, Chair. This application relates to a site that's 250 metres south of Drumclog and seeks consent for a single-storey building of some 2,700 square metres in size that will be used to house poultry. The applicant's business is predominantly based in East Ayrshire, but this proposal allows them to expand operations into South Lanarkshire. 16 letters of objection have been received, which are summarised in section 7, but it is noted that there are no objections from statutory consultees, although conditions have been sought to ensure that there is control over the activities on the site. Section 10 of the report assesses the proposals against development plan policies, and while noting that this is a large building, it is considered that the use relates to an agricultural/rural business that is appropriate for this location, while the likely environmental amenity and traffic generation impacts are acceptable. So therefore, subject to the range of conditions set out in section 11, it is recommended that application P240990 should be approved.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. If you could please indicate now. If there are no questions or comments, then the recommendation is grant subject to the conditions I will grant.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is application P241069 for formation of fishing ponds and associated facilities to allow continued operations at the site for a further 10-year period at Wood End Farm, Carnwath and Lanark, pages 61 to 74. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. This application, as you say, is made under Section 42 of the Planning Acts and seeks to vary a condition attached to a previous consent granted in 2020. The application now seeks to extend the period of operations for a further 10 years, and the consent to which this relates to is for the excavation of sand and gravel, which it is then intended will form fishing ponds. This application was presented to the last meeting of the Planning Committee, but members deferred the decision, requesting that further information was provided on access and the storage of materials. Section 42 applications are such that the Planning Authority cannot revisit the principle of the development and can only assess the appropriateness of conditions attached to previous consents. Section 10 of the report to members outlines the planning considerations relate to the extension of the operational period, and in concluding, it is considered that the amendment to Condition 21 is acceptable. A range of conditions are set out in Section 11 of the report, which seeks to ensure that the activity can be effectively controlled and also provides protection for the adjoining SSI, as well as making provision for the restoration bond to be put in place. One letter of objection and one representation have been submitted, which primarily raise issues about the ownership of the access to the site and other private matters. These are disputes that will need to be resolved through civil legal processes and do not impact on the consideration of the planning applications. Notwithstanding this, once again it is stated that the conditions set out in Section 11 of the report provide suitable control and management powers for the Planning Authority and colleagues in roads to take action should the use of the site have a negative impact on the adjoining road network or the adjacent SSI. Therefore, for the reasons set out in Section 12, it is considered that application P241069 should be approved.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. Councillor Allison.
Yeah, no, I mean, as Fraser has says, this is not about whether the quarrying and fish farms go ahead. That has already been decided, and with fishing being one of the most popular sports in Scotland, I am quite sure at the completion it will be more than welcomed. But no matter how important, if you like, the application is, it is essential that conditions are adhered to. And one of the things that the Council have failed to do in the past is to ensure that these conditions have been adhered to. I don't know whether it's because of the issues that Fraser has raised or not, but I do feel that we need to be stronger here and put further condition in to ensure that nothing happens until the conditions that have been asked for previously and in this report are actually carried out. And I would put an amendment into that effect, that a report needs to come to officers to be accepted by them to show that they can implement the conditions attached. This would show consistency with what the planners have done elsewhere, where they have refused applications in the past because the applicant cannot implement the conditions, basically because they do not have control over the land. We need to ensure that that is sorted before we go forward. And I would put a motion into that effect.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Fraser, do you want to come back in on that, please?
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor. Yeah, and obviously the monitoring and the enforcing of conditions is very important for any use such as this. I would be inclined to then suggest that the conditions number 1, which is about like the dust monitoring management, condition number 2, which requires progress plans and information to be submitted to us, would cover that. There are a number of management conditions which we feel as if there are issues with the operations of the site or impact on the adjoining road network, or as I say, the impact on the adjoining SSI. We could take action we could take quick and immediate action, and that would be through the action or the powers that are available to ourselves, to Nature Scot, to the Roads Authority as well. I would say in terms of the operations that have been taking place down here, we've not had a number of complaints that have been raised to us, but that is a matter then if members of the public do want to get in touch with us about the impact it's having on adjoining sites, we will take the appropriate action. And I would be inclined to think that the conditions, or I would say that the conditions that have been opposed that allow us to step in and take that control of matters are brought to our attention.
Councillor Allison.
Matters have been brought to your attention and they have not been addressed. That's why I think we need some firmer action. The bits you highlighted are not new, but they have not been dealt with. And therefore my motion stands as previously stated. It's not about the application itself, it's about the implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Councillor Allison, I'm minded to accept your recommendation, an amendment to another condition being added to, I think what you're trying to say is a belts and braces approach to bolster that, and I'm quite prepared to add that in as a condition, as that belts and braces at the end of it. I don't know if you want to try and do some wording round about that. Yeah, do you want to adjourn just for 5 minutes just to get that? Or you? Is the committee happy to, rather than taking adjournment, is the committee happy for a delegated position for the officers just to do that condition on the wording for Councillor Allison that you've already gave?
Agreed.
Okay. All agreed then. The recommendation then is to grant subject to the conditions and adding in that condition that Councillor Allison added in. I will move.
I'll second it.
All agreed. Thank you.
Agreed.
Agenda item number 8 then is application P241085 for extension to existing quarry to extract sand and gravel using existing access with associated progressive restoration at Rye Flat Quarry, Carnwath, Lanark, pages 75 to 88. Fraser.
Chair, this application seeks consent to extend the operational area of an existing quarry that lies to the northwest of the West End, access from the A70. The site has been an active quarry for some 70 years, and if approved, this application would allow operations to continue until 2035. No objections have been received against the proposal, and statutory consultation has only resulted in a request for conditions to be attached to the consent to provide management and control of processes. So therefore, subject to agreements to secure contributions under Section 75 and a Section 96 agreement to ensure the upkeep of roads in the adjoining area, it is recommended that the application P241085 should be approved.
Thank you, Fraser. Any questions or comments, please, if you could indicate now? If there are no questions or comments, then the recommendation is to grant subject to conditions, Section 75 agreement and Section 96 agreement. I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay, all agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 9, please, is application P241360 for the erection of 1.5-storey house with attached garage and land 20 metres northwest of 51 Collinhill Road in Straven, pages 89 to 96 in your pack. Fraser.
Thanks, Chair. This application relates to a site in a residential area of Straven that extends to some 0.5 hectares. 7 letters of objection have been submitted against proposals, but it is considered that the issues raised, when assessed against the details submitted, would not bring this proposal into conflict with the relevant planning considerations. It is also noted there are no objections from the road service and that a condition has been attached to ensure the protection of the wall of the adjoining B-listed property. So therefore, subject to the conditions set out in Section 11, it is recommended that application P241360 should be approved.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, please? If there are no questions or comments, the recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. I will move to grant.
I'll second it.
All agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 10, please, is application P241382 for the erection of 2 houses with associated car parking and landscaping at Flatmoss Farm, A726 from East Kilbride to Chapelton in East Kilbride, pages 97 to 104. Fraser.
Chair, this application relates to a site within the Greenbelt and it seeks consent for 2 4-bedroom dwellings on a site that is known as Flatmoss Farm, but which has been used in the past for a range of uses, including for a number of years as an unauthorised business for the storage of caravans. The site has recently been subject to applications for single units that were refused under delegated authority and subsequently refused by the local review board. And as set out in section 10 of the report to members, this current proposal for 2 dwellings for a site in the Greenbelt does not comply with a range of national and local development planning policies, and no evidence or information has been provided that would justify a departure from the development plan. So as such, for the 5 reasons for refusal that are set out in section 11 of the report, it is recommended that application P241382 should be refused.
Thank you, Fraser. Any questions or comments, please? Councillor David Shearer.
Thank you, Chair. As Fraser has just alluded, this site has been up before us on a number of occasions and as yet is yet to achieve anything close to approval. Has discussions been taking place with the owner to find a solution? Because I know this site fairly well when I used to work in East Kilbride and drive by it. It is not the prettiest of locations, and I was just wondering if discussions had been ongoing to find a possible solution for this site. Thank you.
Fraser.
Yeah, no, as you say, Councillor, the site was subject to an unauthorised use for a number of years, and I think that's possibly been something that's led to the condition it's in just now. No sort of encouragement was given about the development as a site for residential use, because that just wouldn't comply with the Greenbelt policy. But there are a range of uses that could be appropriate for a Greenbelt for an area such as this. So there are rural business uses, that was previously used as livery and stables as well in the past. So there are a range of uses that could come forward, but a residential use that doesn't have that's not related to a Greenbelt business is not something that would comply with policy, but would be open to other proposals. It's not about the area just doesn't have to stay there unused, but there are commercial uses that could be appropriately located in the Greenbelt and be open to discussions on that.
Thank you. Councillor Graham Scott, please.
Thank you. Sore throat. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Fraser for his report. I mean, my views are similar to Councillor Shearer in the terms that my recollection of this site goes back about 30 years, travelling back and forward to Straven, is that this was always a caravan site, a haulage vehicle yard. So, and I take the point, it's not the most attractive site in the world and might actually benefit from 2 houses on it. But the question I want to ask planning is, what investigations did planning do to ascertain that this site was a registered business paying non-domestic rates to SLC and the relevant commercial water rates to Scottish Water for this site? Because obviously I'm led to believe there's an assertion, and again, my next question is, in the support papers given by the applicant, that the authorities in taking non-domestic rates have accepted that this was a business site and obviously has degraded over the years. So can planning answer that? And one final point is that, did the applicant ever say that this site was for family usage and not for commercial sale? If planning can answer these questions, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Fraser.
Yeah, no, in terms of the rate income and that sort of process that goes through, that's not a planning consideration at all. So we wouldn't have engaged in any discussion on that. Looking through the planning history, the caravan site was never authorised. There has been enforcement activity that's been ongoing over a number of years, and that's what means that it never actually benefited from having an established use on the site. It has fallen into a state that, as you say, is not the prettiest. But the fact that it's been paying rates for a different use doesn't prejudice the outcome of a planning application. The two houses that were on the site, there wasn't really any suggestion in terms of how they would be used. Now the caravans have been taken off the site. I suppose there are opportunities that could be used, as I say, for a number of other appropriate greenbelt uses. But we've just had this planning application for the two single houses, now for the two houses, neither of which would conform with planning policy.
Thank you, Fraser. Councillor Barker, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think we've had similar decisions to be made previously. I'd just like clarity on if this application is refused on the generality of NPF 4 and development in the countryside, which I totally support, or is it on a de facto brownfield site, however it's come about, but it's being redefined, if you like, as a greenfield site. I'd just like clarity on that. Thanks very much.
No, Councillor, it's not a greenfield site, it's a brownfield site within the green belt. So it's the fact that it's a green belt site, it means that it's not appropriate in terms of the policies within National Planning Framework, but as well as our own local development plan as well. So it's not related to a green belt use, a green belt business, or an agricultural business, or a rural business. It's two dwellings within a green belt area, so that brings it into conflict with a range of policies, and that's the reason why it's presented to, again, members today with the recommendations for refusal.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you, Fraser. If there are no further questions or comments, then the recommendation is to refuse. I will refuse the recommendation.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All agreed? Agenda item number 11 then. I don't have any items of urgent business. Can I ask the clerk just to stop the recording of the meeting, and thank you all for your attendance this morning.